but it had to do with what you were calling traditional rubs, those big, giant historical rubs.
Yeah.
And that I read some quote that said when mature bucks hit those, it's around the first conception date. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so again, there's just enough scent in the air. Just enough to get everyone amped up. That rut's coming, the prom is coming. And so that's when they're still on a pattern, food cover. And those big traditional rubs are gonna be on that pattern. Once we get past 25%, they're not on a pattern. That's when bucks expand their home range, get out of home range. Those of us with GPS collars are back in the day, radio collars are out there at the Yagi antennas. Where the heck is this thing? It's been here, for last 4 months. I could walk this, find it here. It's not here anymore. Everything changes during that time. And if I was going on an out-of-state hunt, I didn't know the area, I'd probably want to go during the rut. I'm just counting on deer moving more steps per hour during the daylight. Late pre-rut, early rut. If I'm hunting at home and I got to take vacation, I'd 99% rather take it during the pre-rut than the rut. Because the rut, those bucks are not on a pattern. They're unpredictable. Your brother-in-law who can't hunt, only hunts once a year, goes to Walmart and buys their own size bullets every year, that kind of guy, And he kills the biggest buck on the property running through a fescue pasture at noon. That's what the rut is, folks. There's no predictability. If you're a serious hunter, it's all about the pre-rut or the post-rut.
Yeah. Going back to rubs again. So one thing that you hear growing up, especially a ton, is like, oh, this is where he's marking. This is his line, his territory. Yeah. So that's not true at all.
Just a travel corridor. Probably we had bucks, does, button bucks, female fawns, all using those rubs.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, what are the does doing with the rubs?
They're sniffed to get information out there, and we had a few pictures where they backed up to it.
Really?
Remember, there's a lot of scent glands on a doe.
So when it comes to, just explain the traditional rub for us again.
Yeah.
Like, what would you define as some people call it a signpost, some people call it historical, some people call it traditional. What is it?
I give my friend Joe Hamilton, who started the QDMA, Joe's actually going to be here in a week or two, he started a newsletter before there was a magazine and all that other stuff called The Signpost. And he got that, I think, maybe for some European deer researchers or something like that. But signpost is a long used term in biology where signposts can be carnivores. It's just where they leave scent. It's a signpost based on scent. And then a traditional rub, I think Dr. David Gwynn came up with the term traditional rub, where we'd find multiple years of scars in the cambium where the tree tried to heal from rubbing. It's very obvious. Very obvious. You don't have to go, well, I wonder if that's been used more than 1 year. That's not it. And we had some, where there's 10 or 12 rings of scars, years of scars on there, where it's tried to heal over and tried to heal over and tried to heal over. And you're on, boy, they bed over here, they feed over here. This is a traditional, and that can all change, right? Your neighbor clear cuts the place, or the farmer quits farming, or whatever it is. Habitat changes. But when you find 15, 20-inch rubs in a line, sometime a year, that's going to be a hot spot. And that's going to be the pre-rut primarily. But yeah.
One quick question. You were seeing 10 to 12 years of rings of scarring on that tree.
Yeah.
Were y'all flush cutting those trees?
I shouldn't have said rings. I knew when I said that's wrong. These will usually be linear scars.
Okay.
Where the trees tried to heal over the wound. Trees try to heal a wound. You've seen this. Logging equipment, whatever, knocks the bark off a tree and it'll grow an odd looking shape, heal over it. It's almost like a tree Band-Aid, right? Well, when you see multiple of those, the tree keeps trying. Every year they rub that off and keeps trying. It'll get big and gnarly, and you can actually feel it. We're not cutting it. You can feel the difference.
Okay. Okay. I was wondering. Okay. Also, when it comes to the information that y'all have learned, or you learned early on with these traditional rubs and scrapes, especially when we're talking about rubs, do rubs mean anything more to you other than a buck's frequenting this area? Like, it's not something that you're going to hunt or anything else that comes to data?
And again, I'm in the Ozarks where there's not much of a pattern on deer. until late season. But if I'm in an area, like, for example, you've got a bean field in the bottom and a thicket on top where someone harvested some timber and there's just a line of big rubs going back and forth, that's a big time travel corridor. And here's a point I think a lot of people forget, because I've kind of dodged where I'm hunting and whatnot a little bit here. Where there's the most sign is usually a place I don't want to hunt. Everyone just, their eyes just blew up, folks. Where there's the most sign. I mean, you go in there and it's just deer pellets everywhere and it, smells like a deer. They obviously feel very comfortable there. It's probably a place where the wind is swirling all the time, or there's some reason they're super comfortable, and I can't be there when they're there. I want to hunt transition zones. That's where deer are taking a little bit of a risk. Boy, I'm super comfy in my bedding area. I got to go get food. I expose myself to danger, certain portions of that travel corridor, not all of it, but there's going to be a weak spot. I got to cross this highway. I got to cross something to get over there. I'm looking for those weak spots. Where is it in my favor the most as a predator?
Interesting. And so are you, just one last thing on the traditional rubs.
Yeah.
So what is the utility of a traditional rub for a deer hunter? Like if you're going to go out and find them, or maybe you know where some are, what can you take from that to your
There's mature bucks in the area. Mm-hmm. We have pictures of, again, button bucks and spikes all over these 20-inch, trees that are rubbed. 20 inches is a lot, folks. We have no evidence of them ever establishing or creating that. If I see a lot of traditional rubs, it tells me a lot of them on a property, there's a good age structure of bucks in that area. That's first thing, and that's where I want to hunt, right? If you're a buck hunter, you want to hunt those older bucks. It tells me deer are traveling this area year after year. Those are my two big takeaways from a hunting point of view.
And I'm guessing a lack of those traditional rubs doesn't make you feel great about where you're at?
And I find in some areas you just don't see a lot of traditional rubs. Now remember, we've covered a lot of ground here. Let's stitch it back together a little bit. Deer prefer aromatic trees. You're in an oak hickory forest, there's not a lot of great trees to make traditional rubs on.
That's a very good point. Because at home, we see it, you said sassafras here, we see it with cedars back in Alabama.
We don't have many big sassafras here. We see it on cedars. We have just a couple of pine trees. I'll tell you funny. So I married a southern girl. I went to Georgia and Clemson and ended up marrying a southern belle while I was down there. Shipped her to the Ozarks, put her in culture shock. And so she loves pine trees. There are 2 pine trees on this property, and there was one, used to be shortleaf pine. This was native pine, here was shortleaf pine. They were logged off back in the day, all gone, right? There was one on the Proving Grounds, one. And when I first found it, I was like, my wife's going to be so happy, this is great. And we were going to do it was about an 8-inch tree, and looked pretty healthy. And there was a bunch of brush right around it. We're going to do a prescribed fire in that area. I said, you know what? Just for my wife, I'm going to take some, I would never do this any other way. I'm going to cut all this brush, blow the leaves away from it, just so pines are so fire resistant, but just so there's no chance I damage this with prescribed fire. I'm going to clear it out around it. And I tell her, get some brownie points, it's all good. The next fall, bucks killed that tree by rubbing on it.
Oh my God.
I don't mean they injured, they killed it. That baby browned up, yeah.
Really?
Because it was the best signpost tree on that ridge and they couldn't get to it. And all of a sudden, I gave them access. I mean, it was thick around it. And I give them access, and they girdled that tree. Deep girdled it. It's hard to kill a pine tree, folks. They girdled that rascal.
Wow.
Yeah, she hasn't forgiven me yet. Yeah.
She's like, go kill them bugs.
The times I've found any kind of rubs that you're describing, these traditional rubs, has been on pine trees. And also we have in some areas a lot of beech trees down south and some of these big bottoms. And you'll find a huge beech tree that is just destroyed. I've never noticed it having any kind of stronger odor or smell to it from aromatics.
Beech is a little weaker, but it has more than like an oak tree. Yeah. Oak doesn't have, you don't see you might see a little oak sapling by the edge of a field or something rubbed on, but you don't see a lot of oak trees rubbed on. Mm-hmm. Cedars are common, sassafras, fruit trees. I mean, if you're a person that plants peach, pear, plum, whatever trees in your yard, you've got them babies fenced or deer are going to rub them. Because fruit trees are very aromatic, and you've got to protect those or bucks will scar them up.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad we brought that up because some of the bigger woods areas that we hunt, whether it be, I mean, just really anywhere, like up and down the southeast,
Yeah.
where there's a lack of those aromatic trees, a lot of times you just don't find the rubs, and you're walking through there and you're like, man, like why is there not? But you'll find the scrapes in those places.
So David Gwynn and Dr. Dr. Gwynn, Dr. Marston, and Carl were doing some early on research and a plantation 17 miles out of Charleston, South Carolina, many years ago. They were pioneers in that part of Southeast of harvesting does and letting bucks get nodal age. That's common now, but that was heresy to think of back in the day. I mean, just heresy. And they were publishing and doing some cool work, and they started noticing these giant rubs. They were not there before they got that age structure going. On big sassafras trees. This had been a rice plantation back day, old rice ditches, cottonmouths everywhere, because I was doing my work there, that kind of stuff. And sassafras are a weed species. They're one of the first to invade an area that's been heavily disturbed, like a big farming operation. They're a weed species. Like ragweed is one of the first to grow up when you disc up your yard or something like that, right? And so I had these new cameras as a, newfangled grad student. And I gave this paper at the deer study group, and I said, man, we got to get that down here, which was a blessing to me. And we got to get those cameras on these trees and see what's using them. What is going on here? That's really how this all got going. And it was life-changing for me, and we published some good work out of it.